Beautiful afternoon to all members of our GFG, to all viewers that may be watching from all other places as well. So, I would just like to start by acknowledging the overseer, Pastor Strike, and our senior pastor, Pastor Joylene, for giving us this opportunity to be able to share and encourage each other on this platform. I'm carrying on today from my fellow anchorman Neo, who was dwelling on the career field of civil engineering last week. So today we're sticking in the field of engineering, but this time we're going into electric engineering. I have a fellow guest here who is very well successful in his field, and I'm sure we're all gonna learn a lot because I know this is a career field that many of our youth are very interested in. So the guest that we have here today is Mr. Ronn Raedane. So he studied at Thohoyandou Technical High School, and then he went on to the University of Cape Town, where he continued his journey into the electric engineering field. So Mr. Raedane, when he was done studying, he went on to publish papers on solar energy on an international platform, and he's currently a performance and planning engineer at Eskom. So before we go on, I just want you to introduce yourself to your guest and our viewers, and just give them a young hi.
Good afternoon, viewers. Good afternoon, GFG. Good afternoon to everyone watching on this Facebook Live. My name is Ronn Raedane, as the presenter has said. I'm a very young man. I know I look 40, but I'm actually 28. I studied electrical engineering at the University of Cape Town. I'm currently working at Eskom in Limpopo, and I'm here at Mana Tabernacle Fellowshipping, and I'm just happy to be here today, and I hope that out of this interview in the next hour you will have learned something from my experience in my schooling days.
Thank you, Mr. Raedane. And as much as this platform is about informing our children about these career paths, we also want to help you discover career paths that maybe you are not aware of, and you may become interested in and venture into. So on that note, I would just like to ask you to first just explain to our viewers, what is electrical engineering? What is it all about?
All right, electrical engineering, if I can put it simply, engineering, first of all, is just a study of maths and science. And then when you draw down into electrical engineering, it's a study of electricity. We are all aware of what electricity is. It's the stuff that makes us boil water. It's the stuff that makes us switch on the light at home. Electrical engineering is quite broad. There's the design phase of it, which is the engineering section. There's the application side of engineering, which is the people that you see working around connecting cables and fixing. So electrical engineering is broad, and I'm sure that throughout these interviews I'll be able to break down to you all the different sections in electrical engineering.
Just to be able to break down those sections about electrical engineering, like he said, we'll be having a few of our very own GFG members who have questions and concerns in the field of electrical engineering, sending through some of these questions and concerns so that he can be able to answer it, and we have answers from someone who's within that field and is experienced within that field. But before we go into any questions, I also just want to ask you, how did you discover your love for engineering? Is there anything that made you see that, okay, this is what I want to go into?
Growing up, I've always been one very finicky person, and if you've spent time with me, you'll actually realize that I'm very unsettled. I love fixing things. So when I was growing up at home, my mom knew that she couldn't buy a new iron before she actually comes to me and I try and fix it, because I love fixing things. I love fixing kettles. I want to fix TVs. I must admit, I never succeeded in fixing any of those things when I was young, but I knew that the passion was in me. I love fixing things, and the nearest thing in actually following my passion was to study electrical technology. I was just fortunate enough that I was able to have good grades in order to study the engineering section of electricity instead of the technology. But I'm a finicky person. I love fixing things, and from a young age I knew that this is what I wanted to do.
Okay, so there you have it, folks. If you like fixing things, if you're the one who always fixes the kettle, the iron at home, you know what career field is good for you. You should consider electrical engineering.
Yeah.
Now, just to move on, let's go on to one of the questions that our God-fearing generation learners have sent through.
Hi, I wanted to ask, what advice do you have for individuals like me who are listening in into the conversation, wanting to know how they can make themselves stand out and separate themselves from other individuals or other students that are studying electrical engineering? Hi, I wanted to find out what are the sort of challenges that I can expect in the electrical engineering field, and also what is the most challenging project you have ever worked on as an electrical engineer?
All right, let me tackle
Good afternoon. My name is Lisella, and my question is, what do you find most interesting about your occupation?
Hello, my name is Mkata Gumran. I want to know what is renewable energy and what are its benefits and disadvantages.
Greetings once again. I also would like to know from an electric engineer if load shedding is a problem that can be solved anytime soon, or if we're ever gonna be at a point where load shedding is gonna be something of the past. Is that gonna happen anytime soon, or are we not well equipped enough as a country to, have electricity all the time, I guess?
All right, thank you for those questions. I think I had 4 questions and I'm gonna answer them systematically. First question was, how do I stand out if I'm studying electrical engineering? How do I stand out? Just bear in mind the answer that I'm gonna give you, it's based on my experience, right? First and foremost, you need to understand the dynamics of a competition, right? There is a healthy competition and there's an unhealthy competition. An unhealthy competition is one where you exert so much pressure on yourself, and you put even when you're putting so much effort at school, you still don't think that that is good enough, which then starts tampering with your mental health. So you really need to stay away from that unhealthy competition. You need to have healthy competition where you compete to become the best among your peers. You compete to be the best in classes. Why do you want to be the best in classes? You want to be the best because it allows you to get the best scholarships. It allows you to be in the best university. How you stand out, and we really have to break this down into sections. How you stand out while you're at school is really just by getting good grades, by applying yourself properly and making sure that you study your material, that you have study ahead if you can, and be the best learner that you can be in class through your marks. Now, when you come into a working environment, it's a different ball game because there are no marks. So how you do that is you make sure that your work is submitted on time. You make sure that you apply extra knowledge. You make sure that you go the extra mile. You apply extra research, and make sure that you stand out in your field at the workforce. But if you are a student and you are still studying, I implore you, do not exert too much pressure on yourself. The main goal for you going to university is to obtain a degree. Whether you obtain a degree being the first or the second, it really doesn't matter. If it matters to you, let it be a healthy competition. Do not tamper with your mental health, because it doesn't help for you to go there with the highest grades and come back empty-handed because you just couldn't take being position number 2 instead of being position number 1. So really focus on the goals that you have at that time and make sure you excel in those goals before you falter in your laurels. The second question, my presenter will remind me if I forget one. I'll answer the load shedding one. Can we practically end load shedding? And I want to put a disclaimer: these are not the views of ESCOM. These are my views, Ronn Raedane's views. Basically, let's start with what is load shedding. Load shedding is a situation where your demand is actually higher than what you can offer. Basically, I'm saying that you have 7 children and you buy 1 loaf of bread. You're gonna have bread shedding because you don't have enough slices of bread to feed your kids. How do you make sure that you end that? You buy 2 loaves of bread, so you have 14 slices. You give each kid 2 slices. So that's how we can end load shedding. We're gonna have more supply that is greater than the demand. As you are well aware, ESCOM is building power stations, and I'm sure in the near future, with all the work that's been put in, we're gonna be able to avert load shedding. What was the third question? Can you just remind me?
There was one question that asked, what is renewable energy and what are its positives and negatives?
Renewable energy, firstly let's start with base energy. Base energy is basically your coal energy, your nuclear energy. That is what is commonly used in electrical engineering. Your renewable energy is then your wind, your solar. It's basically electricity being produced by wind, by solar plants, all these things. I'm sure when you walk around you see the windmills and the solar farms being used. Each renewable energy has its pros and has its cons. For an example, if we're dealing with solar energy, solar requires sun. So during the day you've got very good sun rays, and it means you've got maximum potential for the solar panels to produce electricity, but at night it sort of died down. So it's not something that you can depend on 24/7. You need something to compensate for solar. The other disadvantage for solar is it does not come cheap. It's a little bit expensive. That's the two main disadvantages. The advantages of it is generating it, it's free. We have free sun from God. Thank you, God, for the sun. So that is the good part about it. When it comes to wind, the advantages of wind is also similar to solar. It's also free, but the biggest challenge with wind is you need to be in a windy area, and also the biggest challenge with it is that it depends on how much wind you have on that time. If you are in areas like Limpopo, Northern Cape, where it's fairly hot, humid, without good speeds of wind, then you don't really generate much. So you need to be in Cape Town, those areas where relatively the wind picks up very high. So those are the disadvantages of renewable energy. It's not always available, but the advantages is that it can compensate for the base load that we have. The biggest challenge now in South Africa is that because we don't have many of these plants, and we don't really produce the solar panels as well, it comes in very costly as well to the buyer. All right. I think there was another question. Fourth question.
There was a question that asked, what is the most challenging project that you've worked on?
The most challenging project that I've worked on was my first project, and why I say that my first project was the most challenging was that I was fortunate enough to attend primary school at a private school, but I was attending with Indians, and Indians know so much and they do everything for you. Yeah. So when I went now to varsity, when I'm alone, now I had to do the project. Now I had to find myself having to ask for backup all the times. But to give you a bit of insight on my project was actually on solar energy. I had to actually create a whole value chain of the solar energy. So they bought me a solar panel. I had to design a controller to actually generate electricity from that one solar panel. So that was very challenging because I was used to being spoon-fed at high school. At high school, you raise your hand, teacher, this is not working, teacher comes, just do this. And at university, you actually do not have anyone to help you out. So that was very challenging, but I think it's something that if I were to go back to university now, I would actually make use of the tutorials of the teachers. Each university has tutors. We actually help you out in this thing, and we normally don't use them. So if I were to go back, I would actually use those tutors more often, and it wouldn't be as challenging as it was when.
On that note, I'd like us to go back to a little bit about high school and what it means to be in high school as someone who aspires to be an electrical engineer.
Yeah.
So, what kind of subjects should I be excelling in if I have a desire to be in that field?
The basic subjects for electrical engineering is maths and science. You cannot run away from maths and science. But allow me to expand a little bit in this. Remember now, when we are talking about electrical engineering, there's the engineering section of it, which is the design part, which will require you to have the highest grade in the highest standard of maths and science. But then we must also remember that we have technicians. These are the people who studied at the University of Technicons, at the University of Tshwane College, at Durban University of Technology. You can go there with math literacy and good science, but you need to get good grades on that. We also have electricians in the electrical field. These are the guys that come and do your plumbing at home. These are the guys that you see on the poles, fixing electricity. You also need maths and science for that math literacy. But if you're gonna go for engineering, electrical engineering at university, you will need the highest grade for maths and science. The other subjects, I think it would be good for you to also do 2 languages and include English on those languages, because we must be aware that some schools can offer you an option of not having English. You can study Afrikaans. It might be advantageous for you to study English because remember now all universities are now offering engineering in English, unlike before where you could go and study engineering in Afrikaans only. What would be advantageous for you, in my opinion, I think you might not be fortunate enough to study at a high school where they offer technical subjects like electrical technology. But if you're at a school where they offer things like accounting, economics, you can also study that, because another big part of engineering is mathematics and applied mathematics. So if you can study subjects that have mathematics and science in them, you are good to go. I have seen people who have studied biology at high school still go on and do well in engineering. I've seen people who have studied accounting really do well in the mathematical side of engineering. But I would say basically maths and science must be your base subjects. If you are at a school where they offer technology as well, where you do something with your hands, or there's drawing as well as an optional extra, take those subjects, because they will be very necessary for you when you go to university, or University of Technikon, or an FET college.
Okay. Well, clearly, electrical engineering is a field that has a lot of many broad areas that you can venture into. But I just want to find out from you personally, as a performance and planning engineer at Eskom, what is your role and your responsibility?
All right, my role at Eskom, and interesting how you mentioned that, sir, because I was laughing earlier on to say whenever I go to schools, everyone asks me, how do you climb a pole? And I tell them, I can't climb a pole. I don't know how to climb a pole. And that just speaks to the productivity of the field itself. What I do at Eskom, I analyze performances of all electrical engineering plant. So you are speaking about transformers, you are speaking about breakers, tape changers, and the like. So I analyze the performance. How are they performing? Are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? And each and every, after a certain timeline, we have to do maintenance on that equipment. I optimize the maintenance. It's either I want to bring it forward or I want to delay the maintenance based on how they are actually performing. I also do planning, so I'm planning projects. And these are big projects, big monies that are involved in this project. So that's what I normally do. At no day and time do I go and climb a pole, and that is my role. But if we speak about now technicians, their roles are actually doing the actual maintenance of the plant. You see, so that's the difference between engineering and technology.
I think, especially if you're gonna be a technician within the electrical engineering field, isn't it a little bit more advantageous to go to a technikon instead of going to a university where you learn more theory than application?
You see, we need to deal with 2 things. Firstly, we need to deal with your personal character and the characteristics that you have as a human being. If you're a person that really loves science, that really loves reading, that really loves designing, it might not be advantageous for you to go and start and be a technician, because as a technician, you're actually doing the physical work. If you know that you don't want to stand under the sun and get burned, it might not be advantageous for you to go there, because you're gonna get burned. If you're a handy person like Nelson is, and you want to be fixing things, it might not be advantageous for you to study engineering, because you're going to be sitting in an office 8 hours a day, every day, without doing anything. You actually have back pains if you study engineering. You're always sitting in the chair designing things. So you really need to look at your character. What is it that you are good at? And then you go study that. The biggest frustration that I see now, and really listen to me carefully, the biggest frustration that we have in the electrical engineering field is people studying things that they are not really cut out for. You can see that this person is very handy. They want to be fixing things, but they're stuck in the office, and they start developing an attitude. You start being frustrated because it's not really what you're cut out for. And then you also have people who are in the field who studied to be a technician. Some didn't really choose to be a technician. Perhaps the financial situation forced them to be a technician, but they want to be engineers. So I would say if you have an opportunity to get the highest qualification, go for it, because it will always be easier for you to apply everything that's underneath. If you do not have the finances, you do not have to dump the whole thing just because you can't be an engineer. You can study and be a technician and still make it up the ladder to the engineering positions. You can still upgrade. You can still get your BTech. You can still get a master's and a BTech, which is pretty much close to an engineering degree. So you really need to look at where you are personally and then gauge properly, apply your mind, and then study the right field. That's how I would answer that.
You know, when you speak of climbing poles and being hands-on, it makes me think about this stereotype that's very common among the electrical engineering field. So I always hear people, you know, saying that engineering is for men, it's for guys, and all that type of thing. So I just want to know from your perspective and from someone who's actually within, you know, the field and works there every day, can you confirm these stereotypes? How can you encourage someone, a young girl out there who maybe is very interested in this field, but she thinks, really, it's just for men, you know, so I don't know how I'm gonna get in this. So is there anything that you can...
Luckily enough, we are at a very safe space in church, where we have programs that actually tell our young ladies that they can be whatever they want to become. They can achieve whatever they want to achieve as long as it's physically and mentally, emotionally possible to them. If you look back at the history of the world in all fields, in medicine, it was known that if you look now in the medical field, if a male says he's a nurse, you look at him funny, because in your mind you've always thought a nurse must always be a lady. Those are the stereotypes that have always been there in the world. But now there are so many surgeons that are actually female, you know, that are actually performing great surgeries. Even if you look in the media industry, there are leading women that are leading great shows, your Oprah Winfrey's, you know, these are ladies that have climbed up the ladder, they're on top. And even in engineering, we're starting to see that change. It has always been a stereotype that a lady cannot climb a pole, you know, a lady cannot fix a kettle. And I think we are slowly changing our mentality as human beings to say that ladies are equally as capable as men are in terms of doing these things. I mean, even if you watch wrestling, you see now you even have women beating each other up in wrestling, which was predominantly a male sport. So the mindset is slowly shifting. It is possible. Where I work, we have so many females. My managers are females. My two immediate managers are actually females who are doing very well. One is a professional technician, one is a professional engineer. So that goes to show that we are slowly killing off that stereotype, and it's possible for women to actually do it. The presidency, even the companies, they have so many programs once you're inside the companies that actually uplift women, to actually tell them that, you know what, you can be great, you can achieve as much as men are achieving, and you can climb up the ladder. Even in South Africa now, if you look, we have so many women leading corporate companies. So it is possible. The stereotype is clearly dying down, and I think in the next few years we will be seen equally.
Well, there you have it, young girls sitting at home. As you heard, there are affirmative action plans put in place just for you to succeed, just for you to climb up the ladder. So if you're thinking of going into the engineering field and you're a bit worried that it's not for women, here's your confirmation. It's meant for everyone, and if that's what you want to do, then I suggest you go for it. Moving on, I just like to know, from your perspective, how has this lockdown affected the way engineers have been working?
Well, we must also break it down into the different sections of engineering. When you are talking about people in the design sector, it's people who are normally working on laptops. So you find yourself now, instead of being at the office, you are working at home, but it doesn't really affect you in terms of the material that you need to actually perform your work, because it's mostly on your laptop. So you can still perform your work. But when it comes to technicians, when it comes to artisans, people who have to go and do the work, I think they've been frustrated a lot, because firstly they cannot perform their duties because they've been locked down, some are restricted to move, so there's been a bit of frustration in terms of those who are handy. But then again, on the broader side of it, in terms of engineering as a whole, I think it has actually challenged us to come up with better ways to actually perform our duties and actually perform engineering activities. If you look at things like monitoring of equipment, those are things that you would normally have to drive to go and do, but now we're coming up with ways of doing that remotely. So out of every bad situation, you shouldn't allow yourself to only look at the bad. You have to look at the opportunities that come in those bad situations. So in engineering, I think there's been a lot of initiatives that are coming up in order to just make sure that we continue working. The biggest challenge was that I think as a country we were not really ready. We are not really in the first world like your China's, where they are so technologically advanced. We are still just a bit behind, so it caught us a little bit off guard. But I think as engineering, and I'm speaking now electrical, civil, and everyone, I think we are now coming up with new ways to actually do our work, because we have actually realized that if something like this hits us, we won't be able to perform any engineering duties. So I think that's the positive part of it.
Speaking of these new ways to engage with each other and do your work, I know that you're someone who's, besides engineering, you're very passionate about the field of media and graphics. So I just want to know, how did that come about? Is it something that's in any way related to electrical engineering? Did it come from that point, or how did you have gained this love for this field?
The love for media, if I am to be honest with you, it has nothing to do with engineering. I've always loved taking pictures. I love taking pictures. It always influenced the cell phone that I buy. Whenever I bought a cell phone, my biggest worry would be, which is the camera good enough for me to take pictures. So it's a hobby that's actually outside of engineering, and how that came about. I think whenever we go to conferences, I'm always the one who was taking pictures, from a young age. I love videography. I like the nice effects that people put, and also having a passion for church. I think I saw that there is a gap there where we can actually improve our visual experience for our church viewers. So that's where my passion actually came about. So it is not necessarily driven from engineering, but I must say that when you study engineering, one of the biggest things that they teach you is professionalism. And I think for people who work with me can attest that professionalism is one of the biggest things that I bring forth in my media work. So that part influenced how I do my media stuff, the professionalism side of engineering.
Okay. And I know you a man who's written quite a number of journals, let me say, on solar energy and solar power. So I'd just like to know, what exactly have you been researching on that aspect of energy?
To be honest, there was only one published. There was only one that was published internationally. So what I actually did is and maybe let me tell you a funny story, and I think this will encourage someone out there. When I was on my 4th year, when you are in 4th year, they actually give you a list of projects. So there's about 102 of us in the class, and then they give you a list, 102 projects, and each and every one has to have a project. And this phase 1, obviously you and I are probably gonna choose the same, and then the lectures decide, are you smart enough to outbid the other person. Let me tell you, I got my project at the 4th round, which is now you are the last one to get your project. And when I went to my lecture, you know what my lecturer said to me? He said, "Man, if you can just write something, I will give you a pass. You don't have to worry about this project. I know, this is the 4th round. You just have to." And then I said, you know what? I'm victorious, man. I'm a light. I'm good at this. God has brought me here. I know I'm smart. I'm intelligent. I might have had a rough year, but I'm actually going to apply myself. Let me tell you, man, I got the highest grade, man.
Wow.
In that project. I got the highest grade to such a point that the university came to me and said, would you like us to offer you to go abroad to study and further your studies in solar energy? Man, you should have seen the egg on my lecturer's face. You should have seen the egg on his face. So that's how I actually went into solar energy. I was in nuclear and I was in power electronics. I went to solar energy because I didn't get a topic, but luckily enough, through the grace of God, I managed to be top of my solar class. And then what I did, my research was on, there are various ways of actually harnessing energy from solar. There are various techniques, there are various equipments that are there to actually harness electricity from a solar panel. So my research was on comparing all those techniques and all those equipment and finding the best model. So it's the best equipment and the best model to actually harness energy from the solar panel and actually make electricity out of it. So that was my research, which got published in many countries, in many journals, and yeah, very grateful for that. What I'm currently researching on now is a little bit different. Unfortunately, because at DESCOM we don't really have solar plants, I'm currently researching on techniques or taking the current techniques that are there to actually monitor transformers, and I'm trying to make those techniques much better.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I'm focusing on right now.
Well, there you have it, folks. There is no such thing as it's impossible, you know. Even when the people who seem to be the most knowledgeable in the field can sometimes write you off, there's still God. God can still pull you through. You have to believe and you still have to work. Well, I think those are all the questions that we've had. And so I'd just like to ask, are there any last remarks you'd like to give of advice? Or
I think we have a few more questions, Mr. Presenter. I think our technical director will give them to us.
Okay.
From the
apologies.
GFGs. While we are getting those questions, let me say I'm very passionate about kids that are in high school. Let me say that, you can contact me afterwards if you really want to study engineering. Whether you have financial problems in applying for varsity, that's something that my friends and I have started now, to say that we want to start a program where we actually take you through the whole of grade 12, how to study, what subjects you need to focus on, and actually get your applications through. So if there are GFGs out there and everyone who's watching this show and they want to study engineering, but they think that they don't have, or they'd rather know that they don't have finances, or think that they can't even get the grades, I think it would be great if they can contact any of the GFG teachers, and then we can get in contact with them and we can help them going forward.
Let's move on to the
Greetings in the name of our Savior and Lord Jesus Christ. I want to take this opportunity to thank our facilitators for producing this program, Youth Career Exhibition. My name is Nelson Kwambiwa and I'm an electrician. I qualified as an electrician through the TVET, FET colleges. I did not go to universities. What I did is I did my N1 to N6. Then from there I did my trade test. From my trade test, then I did my wireman's license. One thing or one advantage I can tell about going to a college is the practicals. There is a lot of practicals. By the time you finish your course, let's say your trade test, you would have gone through a lot of practicals in the field. So it's not only about the head knowledge, but it's also about the practicality of it. Because let's remember, electricity kills. If your grades allows and you are fortunate enough to have the money, you can go to any University of Technology, or you can go through the same way I did. I went to a college, FET colleges, where I did my N1 to N6, so you need practicals. I finished my qualifications because I went through all these practicals. I started my own company. Now I'm a qualified electrician and I did not wait for ESCOM. So I started my own company. I'm running my own company and I'm getting job left, right and center.
Mr. Raedane, what do you have to say about that contribution there?
It is very valid. I think it's one of the things that we still have to tackle properly, especially in black families. And sorry for actually singling us out as black people, but I think we need to get to a point where we actually understand that engineering is broad. There's the design side of it, there's the practicality side of it, as Nelson was alluding on the voice note. And like I said earlier, you need to really figure out what you are mostly passionate about, and you need to make sure that you go to the right field. There's a university, there's a University of Technology, there's a technical, and there's an FET. All these are recognized, and they are there for a reason. They are not there just because, they are people who actually come to university and they actually drop out because they realize that I'm not much into theory. I want to be doing the practical side of it. When I was studying, there was a lady, I remember she was on a third year at a University of Technology, and she actually realized that she doesn't want to be practical. So she was an A student, she dropped that, and then she came to university to actually study the theory side of it. So like I said, you really need to figure out what you're passionate about and go study it. At the end of the day, if you're really passionate about what you're doing, if you apply yourself, if you put in the hard work, you will make the money. Because let's be honest, we all go to work to make money. So do not think that just because you go to university, you will automatically earn more than, there are people who go and study boiler engineering, which is part of electrical at the University of Technical. They're earning lots of money, over $1 million, some of them. And then you are stuck with the 20 rand from university, you know what I mean? And doing something you don't like. The biggest mistake you can ever make is to do something that you don't like for the rest of your life. That is a life wasted. You know what I mean? So I would say to you, if you want to do practicals, make sure you go to University of Technikon. If you are good at fixing heaters and fixing air conditioners right now, go to University of Technikon. Make sure you are certified. Get your certificate of compliance or competence, I think. And then after that, make sure you are qualified and start your own company and make sure that you supply the government with those services to fix aircons and make money out of it, instead of going to university and be frustrated by doing the theory that you don't really like. So like you said, the field is broad. Make sure that you get the right information and you actually go and study the right thing. There is nothing to say that University of Technikon is inferior than a university, or an FET is inferior than a University of Technikon. They all offer different qualifications, and they are all necessary in the value chain of engineering. So if you are at an FET, make sure you work hard and you stand out and make sure that you get the best job from that FET.
The way Mr. Raedane is so informative and so clear about what he's saying, it made me even forget that we still have a few more questions. But I've been advised by our technical team that we still have a few more contributions that have been made by our GFGs. So let's just move on to them.
Greetings to our guest speaker and to all the listeners at home. I just have a question that I would like to ask, and I've always kind of been wondering about. So I just want to know, from the point of an electrical engineer, why do we have load shedding in South Africa?
What is your advice to someone who takes a liking and has a passion for electricity and electrical systems, but their marks are not enough to get them into a university to study a degree in engineering? Will this alternative option, such as a University of Technology, give them an equal footing as someone who has studied a degree at a university? And what can they do to put themselves at an equal footing with such students? For example, extra practical work that will set them apart and enable them to have an equal chance in the job market. Thank you.
Hello, this is a question from Amu. I want to ask what subjects are needed to go into the industry of electricians, and how broad is the electricity world. And by that I mean, what kind of electricians are there? Is there different kinds of electricians besides actually going to fix people's electricity, going to their homes and fixing it? Thank you.
Hey guys, my name is Shok Sobola. My question is, do you need good maths to be an electrician?
Hi, my name is Pindu, and I wanted to ask, if I wanted to go into the electrical engineering field, what kind of strengths and what kind of weaknesses would I have to be able to be successful, to have the best chance at success at this career?
All right. The first question, what is load shedding? And I'm going to put it very simply. You have 7 children. You buy 1 loaf of bread, which has 6 slices. You will not have enough bread to feed all your children. So that is basically what is load shedding. We have a huge demand and we do not have the supply for it. And maybe to just reiterate what I said earlier, how do you fix load shedding? You buy 2 loaves of bread for your 7 kids. You make sure that they all have 2 slices. So we build more power station. We make sure that we make use of the renewable energies that we have to make sure that we compensate for the base energy that we have, and then we will not have someone not having electricity. So if I may just go a bit further in terms of load shedding basically means that say you have 5 people who need a liter of water, and then you only have 4 liters. So it means that each and every hour you're only giving out 4 liters. So there will be one person who doesn't have electricity, and then it keeps on rotating like that. That's how load shedding is actually done. I hope we are all clear. Okay, so buy 2 loaves of bread for all your kids. Make sure that they have bread. Second question was
well, it seems like most of these questions here you've already answered, but okay. I'm just gonna ask them to you just so we can bring it home, and then we can close. So in terms of marks, someone asked, what if their marks are not good but they want to do engineering? Are there any other paths that they could follow that could lend them still as an electrician or electric engineer?
Yes. Remember, now you have electrical engineering at the university. That will require you to have the highest marks in terms of maths and science. If your marks are average, and average I think for most universities is between 75, coming from 60 to actually 75. There are many ways. You can go to University of Technikon. It's the theory might be just a few chapters less than what you get at university, but the application is still the same. So you can go to University of Technikon and study. It's still the same electrical engineering. And if you really want to equate yourself back to a degree, you can go and get a BTech. You can study a BTech. You can have your master's in engineering. You can do your research in engineering, and you can even still enroll back to the university once you are done with that, and then you can get your degree. So studying a BTech does not necessarily mean that you're out of the electrical engineering field. It's just a different qualification, one less in the national level points than an electrical engineering from a university. So that's the difference. So if you have low marks, you can go for a BTech. If you have lower marks that don't agree with your BTech, you can go and study your all the way up to your N6. And then you can still upgrade afterwards. If you have an N6, you can upgrade up to a BTech, and then you can upgrade as forth as you see. So your marks will determine which institution you go to, but you can still upgrade afterwards.
Okay, and with regards to becoming actually a successful electrical engineer, not just one of them, what strengths and weaknesses do you think one should have or should try to build on?
I don't know if you really need a weakness to be successful.
Well, one that you should, try and improve, I guess.
One that you need to improve on. I think you, as I said, if you want to be on the technology side of it as a technician, the weakness that you have to get out is laziness. I mean, even in the Bible they speak about don't be lazy, you need to go and work. So laziness is something that you need to cut out if you want to be a technician, because there you work, Bab. You work. So you don't have to be lazy, and you need to make sure that you are willing to put in the work. If you are going to a theory side of it, which is the design, you need to make sure that you love reading, you love researching, because the theory is so broad that you can't cover it in the 4 years at university. You need to make sure that you equip yourself more and more after post graduation, now after university. So you need, if you want to do theory, if you want to be doing designs, you need to be someone who's willing to learn, attending conferences, and make sure that you can study further. So you really need to make sure that you got that on lockdown. In terms of the strength, if you have a good mathematical brain, that is a big positive for you. Engineering boils down to maths. Simple V equals to IR, especially in electrical engineering. That's the basis of electrical engineering. You need to make sure that your maths brain is sharp. if you want to go there, your science brain, and you are willing to work hard. I don't really think there's anything in life that can come as easy if you don't apply yourself, except if you bet lotto. There's no thinking there, you just put 6 numbers. But if you're going to study anything, whether engineering or any other thing, I think you need to be willing to put in the hard work and really work hard for that. Yeah.
Now, I know you're a man who comes from humble beginnings,
Yeah.
right here from Limpopo in Thohoyandou.
Yeah.
So, and I know that there are many children who are out there who may also be wanting to, follow in your footsteps and also make something of themselves. So, what advice would you give these kids who do not necessarily have the resources to, put them in the right path, and they have to work that little bit harder? What advice do you have for them?
The first advice that I would give to a child who's in the rural areas or a child who's from a previously disadvantaged, do not be afraid to ask. And let me repeat it, do not be afraid to ask. And I'm talking about asking your teachers, asking elders, asking people who have studied the same field. Do not be afraid to ask. You don't know how many people suffer just because they don't want to ask, because they don't want to seem like they're stupid or what will they say. This mentality of what will they say, please get it out of your head. Go and ask, go and get information. Right, each and every school there are teachers who, those people, if you are a teacher, you are qualified. It means you've been to a higher institution of learning, you know something about a higher institution of learning. Go and ask your teachers, make sure that you are well informed. Secondly, in South Africa, we are very fortunate to have funding even for the less disadvantaged, for the highly disadvantaged even. We have schemes which can take you through to school. So make sure that you go there and you find out the information that you need. Thirdly, you need to make sure that you focus. Born a child, there are so many things that are distracting in this world. You need to focus. If I can tell you one thing that from one of the churches I attended, these people in Cape Town, and I commend them for that, they would tell you, if you are writing an exam and you have to be on band on Sunday, if you tell us you are writing an exam, we'll actually tell you, don't come and sing on Sunday, go and do your studies. You need to focus. Soccer is not going to go anywhere. Nut is not going to go anywhere. Those things are going to be there. And let me tell you, there is nothing better than going to watch soccer and have a good time with your friends with your own mind after you have qualified. So make sure that you focus. Make sure that you have targets. Your targets, if you are a teenager, you want to pass high school, make sure that's your main target. Your target is to go to university and you get your degree. Focus on that, getting a degree. So many people falter along the way because they lose focus. They lose so much focus that they start being involved in so many other things that are not necessary. Please focus on the goal, Baba. Focus on the target. If you are driving through a tunnel and you are not focused, you'll hit the walls. But you can see there is the tunnel. The tunnel goes there. You need to go there. But if you are not focused, you're going to hit the walls and you won't get there. Irrespective of how wise you are. I'm sure you know of someone who used to get all the marks in grade 12. This person was an A student. By the Canberra, they have nothing. Why? They lacked focus. You need to make sure that you are focused. It is possible. You're a child of God. You are highly knowledgeable. You've got wisdom. You can pray to God. You can say, God, I need knowledge and wisdom. God is a God of He can do anything that you can think of and imagine. He can give you knowledge and wisdom just like that. He can give you the knowledge and wisdom. Pray, focus, make sure you have the targets, make sure you get the information that you need, and you will succeed.
So as an engineer, besides working at Eskom, because I think the stereotypical view that people have is that everyone who's an electrical engineer is to work at Eskom or something like that. So what other examples of jobs can you give us of people working in other different companies or fields?
You will be aware that Eskom is, just because of how big Eskom is, I think they will be the biggest employer for electrical engineering. But there are companies like Nelson is saying, he has his own companies. There is Transnet. There are so many electrical engineering companies out there that offer services. Remember, even Eskom doesn't provide electricity all the way to the last point in all the provinces. In Polokwane, you have Polokwane municipality. They hire electrical engineers. In Joburg, you have City Power. You have Pretoria. You have Western Cape. Those municipalities hire engineering as well. And remember, as an engineer, you can even go work at a hospital. You can be a lighting manager. You can be an engineering manager at a hospital. You can even be a manager at a bank by studying engineering, because the basis of engineering is maths and science. And mathematics takes you to many fields. You can be a financial manager. I know a friend of mine who was actually the manager of Dial Direct. The previous manager of Dial Direct is actually an electrical engineer, believe it or not. So you can there are so many possibilities and opportunities. And I think one of the questions that was asked were, where can you work? So you can work in a design environment, you can work in an application environment where you are servicing homes, you are servicing buildings, you can erect electrical towers, if you want to do that. You can be in a controlled system environment where you can go to a mine and you are in charge of the furnaces. You are controlling the heat, the speed of the shaft, all those things. So the field is broad, and what it does, because of the maths and science knowledge that you have, it opens you up to so many opportunities out there.
Okay, well, there you have it, guys. Engineering is a field with very many different opportunities that you can go into. It's not just about being an electrical engineer. You can be a technician. Engineering is a field that is not only meant for men. There are a lot of women who have made something big of themselves in that field. So I hope everyone at home is encouraged. I hope you've learned something today. And I'd just like to thank our guest, Mr. Ronn Raedane, for being here with us today. Really appreciate having you and all the information that you've given us. So any last remarks to our GFG people watching?
I have so much to say, but what I can leave you with is, firstly, you need to know who you are in Christ. You need to know you're victorious. You can achieve whatever you want to achieve. Secondly, do not limit yourself just because of the background where you're from. Even if you're from a disadvantaged family, you can study whatever you want to study. Thirdly, focus. Young man, young girl, you need to focus. Jola will be there, brah, when you are done with school. You will find it's not gonna go anywhere. there are over 10 million people in South Africa. I'm sure probably 20 million or more. So everything that you think you cannot wait to have now, trust me, you can wait. So focus on school for now. Focus on the targets that are at hand. Go and achieve those immediate goals, and then afterwards you can actually go on and be something for yourself. And this is not only for engineering students. This goes out to all the GFGs, to everyone who's watching this. Look, equip yourself while you are young, while you still have the time to do it. Why you need to equip yourself while it's still early, so that at a later stage you don't have to rush all the stages of life. You can actually go through stages of life in a proper manner, because you have taken time when you are young to equip yourself. Look, if you were born today and then tomorrow they want you to go play soccer, you are not strong enough to actually go and play soccer. You need to cook over first, Baba, and then you need to walk, and then you need to run around. Sure. So make sure that as a young person you focus on the targets that are at hand. Listen to the advices that all people give you. I know we've all been there, me included. Peer pressure, it's a big thing. You think you know so much better. Why are they telling me to stay at home and study? All these things. Make sure you listen to the right advice. Make sure you stick to your targets. Make sure that you are focused, and then get things done while you still can. And then once you are done with that, you will then start enjoying life to the fullest, and you can be who Christ really wants you to be in this world. You can have a much better influence in the world when you have fully equipped yourself at this foundation phase that you're in right now.
Wow. Well, I don't know about you guys sitting at home, but I'm very encouraged where I am here today. So I hope you feel the same way as well. And as you heard it, it's very possible, child. You can do it. So lastly, I would just like to once again thank our overseer, Pastor Strike, and our senior pastor, Pastor Joylene, for giving us this platform to discuss and share such important information. This is the last show that we're going to be having on career guidance, and now we're going to be going into a new sector as the GFG. So join us again next week, same time, same place, to learn more and be empowered in the Word of God. Thank you.